It's 7:30 in the evening across India. I am Tanvi Taneja. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll bring you the day's big stories from across India and the world. With me today from Washington, D.C. is my colleague, Nick Harper. Hi, Nick.
Good morning, Tanvi. It's 9 a.m. here in Washington, D.C., 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. As fighting continues around the main Gaza hospital, we get the latest from our correspondent live from Israel. And the much-awaited Biden-Xi Leaders Summit is just a day away. We'll find out what's expected. But first, the headlines.
Israeli military claims to have found signs that hostages were held in Gaza's hospital. US-UK impose additional sanctions on Hamas's affiliates. China says the world expects the China-US summit to stabilize relations as Xi Jinping leaves Beijing for meet with Biden in San Francisco tomorrow on the sidelines of the APEC summit. US Congress aims to overcome partisan logjam as they are expected to vote on the stoppage bill to avert government shutdown today. And UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak chairs first cabinet meeting since the reshuffle. David Cameron attends the meet on day one as UK's foreign minister. Our first news of the Israel-Hamas war. The United States, in coordination with the United Kingdom, have imposed a third round of sanctions on individuals and groups affiliated with the militant group Hamas. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen stated that the US will continue to work with its partners to deny Hamas the ability to raise and use funds to carry out its violent attacks. And to track the latest from Ground Zero, we are now joined by DD India's Sarah Coates from Tel Aviv. Sarah, Israel's army has said that it has seized the Gaza parliament and other Hamas institutions. What is the latest that you're hearing?
Hi there, Tanvi. Well, look, yes, they did release this picture claiming that they've taken over this building. They also say the government complex, police headquarters and so-called governor's house, which is used for Hamas officers. Now, it also says it's taken the engineering faculty of one of the universities, which is allegedly used to make weapons for weapons development. So, look, that is certainly the latest on these captured areas inside the Gaza Strip where these troops continue to operate. We do know that there is heavy fighting continuing between Israeli troops and Hamas operatives, both sides releasing pictures. Israel says it's taken out around 200 Hamas targets in the past 24 hours. These include militants, weapons storage facilities and other Hamas infrastructure, while Hamas militants have released videos showing them confronting ambushing troops with RPGs and bazookas. So, look, certainly heavy fighting on the ground, coming at a heavy loss to Israel. 47 soldiers have been killed since the beginning of this ground incursion. And look, Tanvi, that humanitarian window, which was open for 7 hours today to get these residents from the north down to the south of the Strip, will close in around half an hour's time. So, look, that is certainly the very latest on the ground as, of course, the humanitarian situation worsens with no fuel still getting into the Gaza Strip. Tanvi.
Sarah, also tell us what has been Israel's stand on Hamas's offer to free up to 70 women and children held in Gaza in exchange for a 5-day truce in the war.
Well, look, this is not official yet. This is being reported by the Washington Post. It is a reported deal that is being facilitated by Qatar between Israel and between Hamas. These are the details that we do understand could be decided on in the coming hours, the coming days. That potentially 70 female hostages that are being held inside the Gaza Strip could be released in addition to at least 100 or so prisoners, female and teenage prisoners who are being held here in Israeli jails. Now, we do understand that this would be for a 5-day ceasefire. Israel would have to agree on that. It certainly hasn't agreed to anything like this in the past. And Hamas also says that it wants unlimited aid, unfiltered aid into the Gaza Strip, including petrol. And this has been something that Israel has been firmly against, given the fact that it says that Hamas would use it to carry out more attacks on Israelis. Now, at this hour, Tanvi, there's a massive demonstration happening. There are marches going now from Tel Aviv all the way to Jerusalem. The families of these people who are being held in Gaza are demanding more action from the government and are right now marching toward the Knesset in Jerusalem to call for answers. Tanvi.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for those updates. Now, the Israel Defense Forces have said that their fighter jets struck a number of sites belonging to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon in response to the attacks on the border today. IDF said that anti-tank missiles and mortars were fired at military positions. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for some of the attacks along the border. Shifting gears now, China's President Xi Jinping left Beijing on Tuesday for a China-US summit meeting and the 30th APEC Economic Leaders meeting in the United States. My colleague Nick Harper is in Washington, D.C. He gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Nick, high-stakes diplomacy on the cards tomorrow?
Well, indeed, the first in-person meeting for these two men in 12 months, and there's certainly lots to discuss. The White House has announced that President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping will talk about improving communications and addressing competition at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit this week. The meeting in the San Francisco Bay Area on Wednesday will be the first face-to-face meeting between Biden and Xi in a year. The agenda of the meeting is to reduce tensions between the two superpowers. Former Chinese ambassador to the UK, Fu Ying, expressed her optimistic anticipation for open and sincere talks at the upcoming China-US summit to try and cultivate a genuinely stable and constructive China-US relationship.
I am glad that the two leaders are going to meet in San Francisco, and there's a very high expectation. I hope they will live up to the expectation of the whole world, find a way to have candid dialogues about each other and to stabilize the relationship so that they could turn around and focus on the real issues in the world.
India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal held bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework meeting in San Francisco. Goyal met with US Trade Representative Catherine Tai. He also met with South Korea's Trade Minister. Taking to X, Goyal said that the duo explored ways to enhance cooperation across diverse sectors, along with reviewing the upgradation progress of India South Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Goyal, who's on a visit to the US from the 13th to the 16th of November, has been invited to attend the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco. Minister Goyal also attended the Investors' Roundtable hosted by the Consulate General of India in San Francisco. He said that India is an attractive investment destination for the world and that India offers promising opportunities for investors because of a unique combination of demographic dividend, manufacturing capability and a conducive business environment. US electric car maker Tesla is on its way to double imports of components from India. Minister Piyush Goyal visited Tesla's manufacturing facility in California on Tuesday. He noted the contribution of Indian engineers and finance professionals to Tesla's quest to revolutionize mobility. Well, back here in Washington, D.C., US lawmakers are expected to vote on the stoppage bill today, even though US House Speaker Mike Johnson plans to avert the shutdown. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer gave a tentative welcome to the proposal on Monday, but House Republican hardliners are threatening to use procedural roadblocks to stop the bill from advancing. To avert the shutdown, the Republican-controlled House and Democratic-led Senate must agree on a two-step stoppage bill. The bill currently excludes funding requested by the White House for the US-Mexico border, as well as aid for Ukraine. All right, we're going to return now to that story about the upcoming meeting between the leaders of the US and China. And joining me live from Washington, D.C. is DD India's correspondent Benji Hire. Look, Benji, this is certainly going to be a very important and consequential meeting. But from the US side, what sort of expectations and mood is there going into this meetup?
Look, Nick, I don't think we should be under any illusions. Both here in Washington and, for that matter, in Beijing, there is a huge amount of skepticism when it comes to both sides' intentions, and any meaningful breakthrough on those big issues that we've been discussing is unlikely. What they hope to come to is what they're referring to here in Washington as tactical stabilization, a pause in what has effectively been a deterioration in the relationship, to allow each side to progress in the best way they see fit, to maintain competition but not delve into any sort of conflict. There are three main areas up for discussion ultimately. The first is territorial claims and military tension, the perception, at least from the States, that there has been Chinese aggressiveness in the region, something that officials here are keeping a close eye on, especially with the upcoming elections in Taiwan, the island territory that Beijing claims as its own. Secondly is global conflicts, the war in Ukraine, Israel. China's approach there starkly different to America's, maintaining a position of neutrality when it comes to Ukraine's war against Russia, and on the issue of Israel and Hamas, not necessarily coming out and condemning Hamas yet, and also directly calling for a ceasefire. And thirdly, tech and economic sanctions, I should say. Still a raft of measures between the two superpowers, and both sides will try to seek a breakthrough. And very finally, Nick, the resumption of military-to-military communications is something that officials, the administration here, definitely wants to see happen in order to prevent any sort of escalation, given the incidents that we've seen in the past couple of months.
And Benji, I think it's worth noting that San Francisco here is hosting the largest international event that the city's hosted in almost 80 years. How has the city been preparing for this influx of world leaders?
It's a great question, and it was put to some senior administration officials a couple of days ago, and their response was, with any sort of high-level diplomatic meeting, bilateral meeting, there are months of delicate planning. This is highly choreographed. Well, what's been interesting about this particular upcoming meeting is that for all the issues that divide the United States, the alleged spying balloons that we've seen, the crackdown from Washington when it comes to tariffs or sanctions, ultimately, the White House has been engaged in one big topic of debate, and that is what it's doing to ensure that when President Xi literally drives down the street on his way to that APEC summit, that he's not dissatisfied, frankly, with what he sees out of his window. And there has been an admission, remarkably, by the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, that San Francisco has been clearing homeless encampments in order to create this environment that is welcoming. And also, let's also mention that there could be potential protests, and that is being kept at a sufficient distance from where the Chinese president will be travelling. So huge efforts stateside in Washington, but also on the other side of the country in San Francisco to make sure this all goes very smoothly.
Okay. Thank you, Benji. That was Benji Hire reporting live from us from Washington, D.C. All right, moving on to the United Kingdom now, and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has chaired his first cabinet meeting today since the reshuffle. David Cameron was seen attending the cabinet meeting at 10 Downing Street a day after his appointment as the UK Foreign Secretary. Cameron spent 6 years in office as Prime Minister between 2010 and 2016. Sunak's decision to bring back Cameron indicates a preference for more centrist and experienced figures in the cabinet, rather than appeasing the populist right of his party.
Our purpose is nothing less than to make the long-term decisions that are going to change our country for the better, and I know that this strong and united team is going to deliver that change for everybody. We've got an important week coming up. On Wednesday we'll have inflation numbers, we'll also have the Supreme Court ruling on our Rwanda plan, and next Wednesday the Chancellor will be delivering an important autumn statement, and that is what this team is going to do. Whether it's navigating the crises in Ukraine, in the Middle East, to demonstrate that we will stand up for our values and provide security for everyone here at home, but also to make the big, bold decisions that will drive change.
Well, for more, DD India's Ollie Barrett sent us this report from London.
Well, it's interesting to hear the Prime Minister using that word change again while sitting in front of his new cabinet, because although while it is a new cabinet and there are some new faces at the table, the face that's grabbed all the headlines, of course, is the former UK Prime Minister David Cameron. And that's led to quite a lot of criticism of Rishi Sunak's attempts to present himself as an agent of change while bringing back an old face from British politics who's been Prime Minister himself before, who's led the Conservative Party, and trying to claim that you are the party of change. So that is just one to watch as one of the potential difficulties for Rishi Sunak in the weeks ahead, trying to present himself as someone who can bring change heading into the next general election while bringing a former Prime Minister back round the cabinet table. When you look at David Cameron, the man, he was often criticised by political opponents when he was Prime Minister for a period of so-called austerity after the global financial crisis. That is something that political opponents will continue to attack him for, and the government that he now represents. It's often been said that David Cameron has not really found his calling after Downing Street, has not really found a role for himself into which he felt that he could fit and offer anything sensible and useful to the wider world. Public service, he's always stated, is something that he is very committed to. And again, we've heard that from him since returning to this role, and his allies who say that that is what this is about for him, is serving the UK government at a difficult time geopolitically. But again, lots of critics of Rishi Sunak's move to bring David Cameron back in for a lot of reasons. But there are also quite a lot of Conservatives who feel that this is a move that could help the party, which trails behind the opposition Labour Party by some distance in the polls.
The European Union has said that its goal to supply Ukraine with 1 million rounds of ammunition will not be reached. German Defence Minister Boris Pistorius added that EU members are working together with the industry to try and ramp up ammunition production.
The question of whether 1 million was ever realistic is actually the right one. There have been voices that have said to be careful, because 1 million is easy to decide and the money is there, but the production has to be there. Unfortunately, these other voices are right. We have made a major contribution with our framework agreements and will continue to do so. We are in a dialogue with the manufacturing industry. Production must be ramped up and accelerated. That is the order of the day.
Well, that's it from me here in Washington. Tanvi, throwing it back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Nick, for joining us. You're watching DD India Global. Still to come on the show. India's advanced light combat aircraft Tejas displays its daring maneuvers at the Dubai Air Show 2023. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to pay tribute to freedom fighter and folk hero Birsa Munda on Tribal Pride Day tomorrow.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Thank you for being with us. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. On to Asia now. Again, the Dubai Air Show witnessed a heart-stopping display as Tejas, India's advanced light combat aircraft, showcased its extraordinary capabilities, including the daring red-eye turn maneuver, capable of generating up to 8 G and enduring negative forces up to 3.5 G. The Tejas exhibited high rates of turn and climb, making it exceptionally effective in close combat scenarios. Tejas successfully demonstrated the half roll, hesitation roll, snap roll and the half Cuban roll, meticulously enthralling the audience.
It is a privilege for me to have got this opportunity to showcase the prowess of our indigenous fighter aircraft. This is our second appearance in Dubai Air Show, first being in the year 2021. Display flying requires preparation, discipline and precision to present the true capability of one's aircraft alongside the contemporaries and amidst some of the best aircraft in the world. Our aim here is to uphold the highest traditions of professionalism set by the Indian Air Force.
Tomorrow, on 15th of November, like every year, India will celebrate Tribal Pride Day. This year, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Jharkhand's capital, Ranchi, and the museum that celebrates the life of the great tribal leader Birsa Munda and other tribal freedom fighters of India.
15th of November is celebrated as the National Tribal Pride Day. This day also marks the birth anniversary of the tallest tribal leader, Birsa Munda. This year, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Jharkhand, his birthplace, to pay tribute to the great man. It was in Ranchi where Birsa Munda laid down his life fighting against British and for the tribal rights and freedom of India. This jail, which functioned till 2010, is now converted into a museum. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit the museum on 15th of November and pay floral tributes to Bhagwan Birsa Munda. The museum also showcases the life and history of the tribal leader, his journey from his younger days to his freedom struggle. Not just this, the museum also depicts the tribal culture and their way of life for people from across the country to come and witness the life and history of tribal India.
जनजातीय शहीद संग्रहालय ही है, लेकिन अब आदिवासियत को हम व्याख्यायित करेंगे तो पूरे आदिवासी जीवन को हमने दिखाने की कोशिश की है। उनके पूरा जन्म से लेके नामकरण से लेके और अंतिम संस्कार की बातें भी वहाँ कही गई हैं। आप घूम के देखेंगे तो उनके सारे कर्मा, सरहुल, सोहराय सब पर्व त्योहार के बारे में वहाँ बताया गया है।
The prison also preserved the barrack number 4, where Birsa Munda was imprisoned and eventually laid down his life inside the same room. The barrack number 4 has also been converted into resting place for Birsa Munda.
On 15th of November every year, India celebrates the National Tribal Pride Day, a day where tribal leaders are paid respect throughout the country. This year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Ranchi and will also visit this very same museum where Birsa Munda, a tall tribal leader who is also regarded as one of the tallest of all the tribal leaders in India, has sacrificed his life here fighting the British. From Ranchi, this is Dibyendu Model for DD India.
And now let's take a look at what else is happening around the world. In Somalia, severe flooding in Dolo district has forced residents to leave their homes and caused food shortages. Families have been relocated to internally displaced camps, while some have stayed in flood-ravaged villages to pick up their pieces. The floods in Somalia and neighboring countries in East Africa following a historic drought has been dubbed as once-in-a-century event by the United Nations. Bayman, a department store in Turkey, marked its 50th anniversary with the Golden Opulence exhibition. celebrating the history of luxury in Turkey and the Ottoman Empire. The exhibition showcases dresses, kaftans, suits and everyday objects with adornments rooted in the history of Turkey and the Ottoman Empire. The designs in the collection are inspired by Turkey's diverse culture. Pet owners in Japan are adopting the custom of blessing dogs and cats during a traditional coming-of-age festival for children. A group of Shiba Inu dogs dressed in kimonos lined up for a memorial picture in honor of Shichigo-san, a Japanese custom in which parents bring their children to a nearby shrine when they are 3, 5 and 7 years old to make a wish for a prosperous future. A 500-year-old hand prosthesis has been discovered in southern Germany during construction. In the Bavarian town of Freising, which is close to Munich, an iron prosthetic skeleton from the Middle Ages was discovered. The skeleton belonged to a man between the age of 30 and 50, according to a radiocarbon dating. He died sometime between 1450 and 1620. UK's King Charles III is celebrating his 75th birthday today, and the milestone, however, is being marked by gun salutes across London. The King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery fired a 41-gun salute from London's Green Park. This is the second formal birthday salute for His Majesty since he became king after his 74th birthday. Royal gun salutes follow traditions and are fired on special occasions such as anniversaries and birthdays, and in the event of a death. King Charles has said that he is celebrating his birthday as a working day, though. With that, it's a wrap in this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at DD India Live. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.